Hello everyone, my name is David Makepeace from MillerEdge. I'm the Regional Sales Manager for the Eastern US. Today we are looking at an ordering or quoting guide for sensing edges. A very common question that we see out there in the field and from customers is how do I correctly specify the right sensing edge model? And then once I have the right model, how do I choose all the various options and configurations? So we have a step-by-step guide that we're going to go through and make sure that everyone feels comfortable with each of those sections. And then by the end of the session, you'll be able to use this guide yourself, take a copy with you, print it out, or keep it digitally, and then refer to it whenever you need to. So starting from the top, the first thing that we're going to choose is the sensing edge model. So that really is going to come down to whether this is a sectional door or a rolling steel door. We'll take the sectional side first. So on the sectional side, we're really just going off of the thickness of the door panel. So for example, if this is a 1-inch thick sensing edge, you're going to use something that's commensurately smaller. You're going to use the ME110, for example, which is one of our smaller profiles. And then you'll work your way up, depending on the thickness of the panel, all the way up to the ME123, which is one of the most popular styles for sectional doors. This is to fit 1.75 to 2-inch thick sections generally. So here is an example of the ME123, for those of you that maybe are not familiar, and the mounting channel that you normally see that comes with it. So that is how you would select your model on the sectional side. Is we recommend go basing off of the thickness of the door panel. On the rolling steel side, a little bit different in that we aren't going off of the thickness of the section here. What we're really going off of is the door style, the bottom section of the rolling steel door. What style is it? Is this a double angle? Is this a solid single piece? And that's going to tell us which sensing edge that we can use. So for rolling steel doors with a double angle bottom bar, we typically recommend the MT22. This is an example of the MT22, those of you that haven't seen one prior before. So this here would be used again for double angle bottom bars. This top flap here gets pinched up in between that angle. That's how it gets affixed on the door. If the bottom bar is a solid single piece, then the MT22 is not an option that you can really use. So we recommend a couple of different options there, which you can see on the guide. Those would be more similar to the extruded ME123 edge that you see here that would slide in using a mounting channel. There are a couple of different door manufacturers that do have specific edges to fit their own specific bottom bar style. Cornell would be one of those. So we've listed the MC22 on the guide here, as you can see. So for example, if it is a Cornell door with it has a special extruded T-slot that you slide the edge into, then you would use the MC22 for that. You'll note here that we have said if there's a double angle bottom bar Cornell door, then you can still use the MT22 if the two L angles do split apart. One more thing on the rolling side that you may not be aware of, the model numbers for the MT edges and also MU, if you come across MU edges, do follow a very simple nomenclature for naming. So MT is the model, which is this kind of tear-shaped design that we have here. The numbers represent the width and the height of the profile. So 2 and 2 means 2 inches wide and 2 inches high. Unfortunately, that doesn't follow the same nomenclature on the sectional side. So for example, the ME123, the 123 doesn't reference the width or height of the profile. Generally, as the number goes up, though, the size does get larger in most cases, but do reference the specification sheet to check. And if you want to make sure of the exact dimensions, take a look online. So once you've chosen the model, so if we've chosen our model based on sectional or rolling steel, then we're going to go ahead and choose color. So for color on the sectional side, most edges are black only. There is the ME123, which does have an additional option for yellow. So the ME123 I was showing before does come in black, and you can also get this in yellow as well. On the rolling side, so for MTs, MCs, and also for MUs, which often get used on larger industrial applications, for example, those edges, which have this kind of vinyl type material here, do have a couple more different color options. So they can come in black, gray, yellow, black striped, or what's called XR5. So XR5 is a slightly different material type that I will mention here, just in case anyone does come across that. So for mostly airplane hangar installations, we manufacture and have available a sensing edge using a material called XR5, which is chemically resistant to certain elements such as jet fuel, for example. So it's specifically made to be resistant in those kind of applications, like I said, particularly airplane hangar applications where we're seeing those kind of chemicals. So unless you're in those kind of environments, if you were wondering what XR5 was, you're really not going to use that. You would standardly use one of the other colors. But for those of you that are in that particular industry where you come across those applications, know that we have something specially available for that. Once you've chosen your color, you're going to go ahead and choose the outlet location. So the outlet location is fairly simple to work out, but is very important to get right. So really what you want to get into the habit of is normally the operator is going to be mounted on the inside. You're going to reverse this if it's on the outside, but if it's on the inside, you're going to be inside looking out at the door opening. If the operator is on the right-hand side, you're going to choose a right-hand wire outlet for your sensing edge. If the operator is on the left-hand side, you're going to choose a left-hand outlet for your sensing edge. So in terms of how that looks on a sensing edge, I have one here with a wire exit on the side. So how would I work out what this is just looking at the sensing edge? I'll give you a very easy way to configure it. So looking at the sensing edge, if I'm facing the sensing edge with the mounting side facing up and with the wire pointing out directly towards me, so not facing away, but pointing towards me, if the wire is coming out on my right side, this would be a right-hand edge. If the wire is coming out on the left-hand side, this would be a left-hand edge. So this one here, channel facing up, wire pointing towards me, this wire is coming out on the right-hand side to me at this sensing edge. So this would be a right-hand edge. So that's how, if you're looking in the field just trying to work out, or if you have an edge, trying to see left versus right, that would be how you configure it. And that would be how you would do it on a standard door, whether that's sectional or rolling steel. Now, we do have a couple of options on some sensing edges that offer what's called a universal option. So I'll show you both on the sectional and rolling steel what that looks like. On the sectional side, by universal, what we mean is the wire comes out of the very end of the sensing edge, and there is a horizontal groove in the end plug here that allows you to dress the wire to either side. So you can then choose, you can order it as a universal, and then when you get out there to install, the installer can make the choice of which side this is going on. So this is very handy for, even if you think you have it right, just order it universal if the option's available, and that way, there's less chance of an issue. If for some reason the operator does have to change handing, then the edge isn't going to cause a problem because you can dress it to the other side. So on the sectional side, this is what it looks like if it's available. On the rolling side, this one here again is a side exit. If this was a universal, it would come out of the very end, and there would be a hole in the side of the flaps here that you can dress, again, the wire either to the left or to the right, depending on your particular preference. So once you've chosen the outlet location, you're going to go ahead and select the length. So the length for sectional, again, is very simple. So it's really going off of the panel size. So if you have a 10-2 wide panel, you're going to use a 10-2 wide sensing edge. So if my panel size is 10-2, I'm going to order the sensing edge for my sectional door at 10-2. The rolling steel side, there's a little bit more to think about, and I'll go into detail as why. So on the rolling side, what we ask you to do is give us or measure the tip of guide to tip of guide measurement. So you're going to take the tip of guide from one side of the door, tip of side of the other, take that measurement, whatever that is. You're going to deduct 2 inches from that measurement, and that's going to be the active length of the edge. I'll explain what that means. So when you get an MT22, for example, for a rolling steel door, you'll notice that there are these flaps that poke out beyond the kind of the hard block that's in the sensing edge here. So the block to block area is what we're calling the active length of the sensing edge. These flaps then protrude out beyond the block I've actually trimmed these flaps down. They are typically around 4 inches long. So when you get them for a new sensing edge, they'll be about 4 inches. I've trimmed these just for demonstration purposes already. So when you make that measurement, that tip of guide to tip of guide measurement, and then deduct 2 inches, that's where you're gonna see this kind of block to block area. Then you'll have an inch of space either side that you'll be able to tuck these flaps into and trim them if necessary to give you a full seal on the door. The reason why we do that is that we don't want the blocks, the active portion of the edge really, to rub on the guides. It'll cause damage over time and potentially cause the edge to fail sooner than it otherwise would do. So please do make sure when you're measuring for rolling steel, take the tip of guide to tip of guide, not inside to inside, for example, tip of guide to the tip of the guide, and then deduct those 2 inches. That's what you're going to write on the ordering form for the active length. That's the measurement that we want. All right, so once you've got the active length, then we're going to talk about and figure out if you want monitored versus non-monitored. This is probably the area where most folks, especially if they're newer, maybe get tripped up on first. So the monitor piece is actually fairly straightforward, and we've laid out a pretty good way to figure out what to choose here. So I'll read through it, and then we'll kind of pick it apart to make sure that everyone's clear. So you're going to select a monitored sensing edge if the monitored photo optics are not installed and the door operator was manufactured after August of 2010. So really what this says is you're only going to choose a monitored sensing edge if there are no photo eyes installed, no light curtain, for example, that meets UL 325, and the door operator was manued after August 2010 when the newer UL regulations came into force for door entrapment protection. So for monitored, no photo eyes, operator was manufactured after August 2010, you're going to choose monitored. You're going to choose non-monitored then if there are already photo optics installed, because that's then going to be the primary device. The sensing edge is going to be a secondary non-monitored. So that's one case. And then secondly, if monitored photo optics are not installed and the door operator was manufactured before August 2010. So if there are no photo eyes and the door operator was installed before August 2010, you're still again going to choose non-monitored because the operator is manufactured before that date. So you can see here that the operator manufacture date is a key piece of information that you need to be aware of and know so that you can then make that decision. So operator manufacture date, you need to know that, and then are there photo eyes, yes or no? Once you have those two pieces of information, you can work out quite easily whether you're going to have a monitored or a non-monitored sensing edge. So once you know monitored or non-monitored, you're then going to choose the switch configuration. So by switch configuration, we mean 2-wire, 4-wire. If it's a 2-wire, is this going to be electric? Or if it's non-monitored, for example, are you going to have an airwave, a pneumatic edge? So we'll kind of walk you through that to show you what the options are. So if you selected to have the monitored sensing edge, you do have a couple of options, mostly if you're using a LiftMaster operator system. So I'll explain LiftMaster first. So LiftMaster, you generally have really two options. You can do a 2-wire monitored edge. You will use a module called the SM102 to connect into the operator in that case. LiftMaster also facilitates a 4-wire monitored edge connection using their CPS-EI module interface. So you do have two options there. What I would generally advise is you might come across 4-wire edges in the field. If you're replacing them, that's fine. Go ahead and replace them. For the most part, to save confusion, I would generally advise using a 2-wire monitored edge if this is a general run-of-the-mill application. If there's any questions or there's something more in-depth to that installation, then again, reach out and we'll help to kind of configure that and understand what the requirements are. For essentially every other operator system, you're going to use the 2-wire monitored configuration. Most of them don't facilitate a 4-wire monitored edge in that particular process. So that's monitored. If you're selecting non-monitored, again, a couple of different flavors and options for you. So you can choose 2-wire non-monitored electric. So 2-wire non-monitored electric is essentially what probably most folks are used to out in the field, especially pre-2010. This is just your regular, normally open switch, what most people would be used to installing up until that 2010 date where we changed to add the monitored option. We also offer, just in case you aren't aware, so it's listed down at the bottom in section 6 here, we do have what are called airwave and pneumatic options. So airwave and pneumatic are the same family of products. They're both air activated. They're differently branded because the airwave is a little bit newer technology. So they are both, as I mentioned, they're air activated. You would have a sensing edge rather than a wire. It would have a hose coming out of it connected to an air switch. Now, in the airwave case, that air switch is a little bit upgraded. There is an option to adjust the sensitivity. For example, the diaphragm is made of silicone and is therefore going to last a little bit longer out there in the field. The edge can be longer. The pneumatic option, for example, is really only designed for shorter edges. So if you're looking for something that can work air activated, those options are there. They are very good options, especially if you're working in colder temperatures or where the temperature is varying a lot. Or, for example, where it's a wet environment. As many of you know, electricity and water don't often mix too well. So in those kind of environments, an air-activated solution can work particularly well. I will highlight here also, under the switch configuration, just since we're talking about monitored and non-monitored and that kind of stuff. So for those of you that aren't familiar, when I'm talking about monitored versus non-monitored in a sensing edge, and we'll cover this a little bit more in section 7 too, there are two contacts running horizontally along this sensing edge. With a non-monitored solution, that's it. Those two contacts attached to two wires. You can see those two wires here coming out of the sensing edge. For a monitored edge, and this one actually is monitored, it has this blue wrap around it. You can't really tell looking at it exterior, apart from this blue wrap or perhaps the part number written on it, whether this is monitored or not. But if we open this edge up on this far end, where the non-wired end is, if we pulled this out, what we would see is a termination going from the top contact to the bottom contact. That's what we mean by monitored. We're terminating the end of the edge so that the system, the operator, the module that's interfacing it potentially can check and make sure that we're seeing whatever has been terminated here and that we're getting a good signal back. So moving on to step 7. So step 7 is really only designed if you have picked 2-wire monitored. If you've picked 4-wire, you don't need to do this. If you've picked non-monitored, you don't need to do this. This is only for if you've picked 2-wire monitored, and that is because we are then terminating across those 2 wires that are at the end of this sensing edge. If we're doing that, we need to know what we're terminating it with, and that is dependent on the operator brand. So you will see in this section 7 at the bottom here, we have a model reference, so T1, T2, T3. We have a termination that equates to. So T1 is 8.2 k ohm resistor, T2 is a 10 k resistor, T3 is a diode capacitor, and then you'll see the operator brands that are associated with those terminations and with that model. So T1, which would be a green color, so we use a wire wrap to indicate it on the edge. This would be a green wire in that green wire wrap in that case. That's for typically European commercial door operator systems. So we generally don't see that many of those in the US at the moment. So for most operator systems, I would say you're going to run across the next one, which is T2, which is the blue wire wrap that I have here. T2 stands for a 10 k resistor. So we're terminating the end of this edge here with a 10 k ohm resistor. And those operator brands are listed there that you can see. Those are the ones that facilitate and use a 10 k resistive method for monitoring. At the bottom, you'll see T3, which is red. So again, this wire wrap would be red. That termination is a diode capacitor, and that is for the overhead door and Genie brand operators only. So that's really the only one that you'll come across with that red wire wrap. And that's why I said for most cases, probably you're going to see a lot of the blue, the 10 k ohm resistor, and then for overhead door or Genie brand systems, you will see that red diode capacitor right there. Once you've picked that, you can obviously make the selections. As you'll see on the right-hand side here, we have check boxes to make those selections. You have one final piece to do before you're finished, and that is to choose if you need a module or not, an interface module. So you'll notice that there is asterisks next to the operator brand names here, in some cases, not in all. So where you do see that, so for example, at the bottom here, we've got overhead door Genie has a double, and most of the ones up here under 10 k resistive have a single. If you see that, a module is required in order to make that connection to the operator. There are 2 modules, the SM101 and the SM102. The SM101 is used for die-capacitive systems. So really, the overhead door Genie brand operators, and you'll see overhead door Genie brand has a double. So we're going to go over to the right-hand side here and select the SM101, which has the double. There's a note here at the bottom as well, again, referencing the double, saying requires the SM101 signature module for operator compatibility. If it's just a single star, then you're going to reference the SM102. So all of the operator brands here that have that single next to it, you're going to reference and check the SM102. There's a single, again, reference down here saying requires the SM102 signature module for operator compatibility. You notice some of the operator brands don't have it, in which case you don't need the module. And really what the module is doing, again, for those of you that are not familiar, in some cases, the operating system needs the sensing edge to convert the, for example, say the 10K resistive signal into something else. So that module is doing that. It's making that conversion before it gets connected into the operator. If you try and connect it directly, you won't be able to get this working. So it is critical, like I said, if we're saying here that you need the module, make sure that you either have the module or that you're going to order it with it so that you'll get things working. Hopefully that gives you a good idea of everything that you're going to need. Once you've gone through this form step by step, as we just have done, you're going to be able to complete everything that you need for a sensing edge quote or an order. Make sure that you use the form. So on the right-hand side, you've got an area to select. So write those down as you go through. And as long as you get into the habit of completing each of those sections, there's no reason why you should get back to the office or back from a call with a customer and not have all the information that you need to make your next edge selection. So thank you for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.